Thanks so much to all my patrons. Join now to help support the channel and help pick the books that I review. Link in the description. And I am done. Okay, so I just got done reading The Strength of the Few. This is book 2 in the Hierarchy trilogy by James Islington. And I want to give you my unedited thoughts on finishing this book, which was literally just right now. So, I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5. And yeah, it was okay. It was a little better than okay, which is about 3.5 for me. And yeah, I'm very disappointed because, oh man, did I want to love this book. I loved the first book, what was the first book called? The Will of the Many. That was wonderful. In fact, it was my favorite book that was written in 2024. But this one it lost so much of what I loved about the first one. And without going to spoilers about this book in particular, it spoils the series a little bit, but I'm going to talk to you about like very early on in the book and without talking really about much plot points at all. So let's talk real quick. First book, it was this book that blended this school setting. So it had that thing that everybody really in their deep part of their soul loves, a good fantasy school setting, but it blended this like Roman culture into it, which is not something that I've ever had done to me in a fantasy book. I love Roman culture. I feel like so many of us do. It's just a fantastically intriguing culture, and to blend it with fantasy is great. And James Islington is a wonderful author. James Islington, the author of the 𝐒𝐨𝐽𝐻 trilogy, which I read the first book. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't keep going on in the series, but it is very well loved by people that love a good, solid, surprising trilogy that delivers on the final book. That's what I constantly hear about 𝐒𝐨𝐽𝐻's final book. Absolutely fantastic. So then you go into this book with a good fantasy trilogy in this Roman thing, and it's really fun, really cool, different, fresh, and there's a reason that so many people absolutely just love that book. But so then we go into this one, and what I wanted was the first book again. I wanted the things that I loved about the first book, maybe going in a slightly different direction, but I got a wildly different book. And I kind of forgot the ending of book 1 as I went into this one before I remembered, but the ending of book 1, for those of you that are watching this review, hopefully that you have read book 1, because how do I talk about book 2 without talking a little bit about book 1? But the end of book 1, there's this shocking moment that impacts the character, and it has this kind of time-traveling mechanic to it. And he's kind of like finds himself in 3 locations, the one that he's currently in, and then he also finds himself in 2 other realities. He doesn't know that he's in the other ones. He's only in the one that he's in, but we know because it's going to bounce between the different chapters. And right there, stop, just that premise. We're not going to talk about plot much more. That sucks because I had this really awesome Roman thing that I wanted to get into, but a lot of the book was spent on these other versions of this main character that did not have this Roman kind of thing to it, that had this totally different thing to it. And, it's like the wonderful thing just wasn't there. And it went back into the thing that I didn't love about James Islington, that he's obsessed with this time jumping mechanic. And I don't like that mechanic in my fantasy stories. I find it has many plot holes in it that make my brain constantly be shouting them out at me. And even beyond that, if I could just suspend disbelief, because I have to do that constantly in fantasy, because fantasy is all about suspending disbelief. It's just not something that just like pulls at my interest. And so to see that happening nonstop in here, as soon as I'd get into a plot line and really be into it, we'd be jumping onto another one, and then my brain's just having to reset and go into this new thing. I had to get my brain queued back up into this story, but at the same time, I had to sync it with 2 new stories at the same time, and learning all these new characters and all these new phrases and these 3 different worlds, and it felt overwhelming, and it wasn't fun. And that's a problem for me as the reader, because I really want to have fun. And I didn't love those stories. I mean, and very basically, I had this kind of like heist kind of story. I won't say more than that. And I had this another different type of like school setting, and I wasn't like thrilled with that one. I wanted to go back to what I had, and every time I went back to it, I thought it was wonderful. And that's why I'm giving this book a 3.5 stars. And I spent most of the book with that one character. I'd say like over 50%, or about 50% maybe, and then 25 with these other two. And it was great. It was like, why aren't we spending more time like this? It had that intrigue. It had the mystery going along to it. It had the really fun character dynamics. The huge moments are all there. It had so many things that I just loved. It's like, why are we doing these other things? I couldn't find like the purpose to it. And it pulled so much away. And so, like, obviously the purpose is that he's going to deliver in this wonderful way. Obviously, that's what he did in 𝐒𝐻𝐡. That's what made him relatively popular. And he wants to deliver on that again. And I suspect what's going to happen is that moment when he ties it all together, and ideally it happens, ideally it works well, it's going to make him huge. And people are going to just really, in masses, wake up to this guy, because I think a lot of people are doing it right now. I think a lot of people are going to really like this book and are going to disagree with my criticisms here, because this isn't a bad book. I happen to disagree with the plot lines of it and the things that are of my interest level, but I think by and large people are going to love this, and it's going to, especially the ones that like the first one, they're going to stay on to it. They're going to keep going. If you like that in general, you're going to keep loving it. And then if you can stick on to that third one and watch that promise get delivered, it's going to be huge. And I think that's what's going to happen here. And I'm going to be the sucker left out being like, ugh, I should have kept going. Because I don't know if I'm going to keep going. This wasn't a good enough experience to me to want to keep it up again. And to have to go through these other confusing kind of like weird moments again, I don't want that. And then I got to watch everybody else having a blast. So now that I talk about it, now I'm talking myself into it. I really want to. But it is what it is. And so let's talk briefly about some other things here. The fantasy elements here, I thought, it's so much, I have to like try to think beyond the time jumping mechanic. But as I think about like the cultures that are being built here and the worlds that are being just like thrown in, one a little bit more than the other, I thought it was like, it was crafted well. It actually, it brings me into that world quite well. And I felt like James does a good job setting the scene and just kind of letting it loose. He's a really good writer. And so I liked that. And when I think about like the things that make my fantasy stories great, the characters just didn't jump out at me like they do on some of my favorite stories. And that's true for 𝐒𝐻𝐡 as well. And that made the first book in the series so dang different to me, because those characters really were incredible to me. They were wonderful, and I felt like we went back in these two different worlds that we got brought up into that kind of weak, like didn't spend enough time with them kind of characters. That cookie cutter. I'm not going to remember them in the long run. Won't remember their names. Won't remember anything specific. By the time I get to that third book, I'm going to remember these Roman guys pretty well. But everything else is going to kind of blend to the background. So that's kind of unfortunate. When it comes to the prose of this story, I feel like it's average. Nothing great, but it's not going to turn you away from the story. It feels pretty like average for a published fantasy story, which is what this is. So if you're like me and you read a lot of different stuff, it's going to maybe feel a little bit more better than average. But in general, it's right about that middle ground. But yeah, so God, I'm frustrated. I'm upset with myself that I'm just on what my personal tastes are. I'm being so like in tune with them to be frustrated here, because I just feel like you're all going to love this thing, and I just can't. I'm not there. I just thought it was okay. So that's it for me. Hopefully you keep going on this thing. I haven't dissuaded you from it, and you can get some huge value out of it. But that's it for me. Thank you so much. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Amy, Alex P, Anna G, Brady K, Doust, Darren, Jerry, Jonathan, Nev's Book Channel, Ron Reich, Ryan L, Sydney Baker, Anna, Blair, Eric Cannon, Joe UK, Kat Mick, Ricky Iman, and Sky. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video, and if you want to watch some more content from my channel, click over here and I've got some good videos for you. Thanks so much.